So, Jose, you want to talk about bridging?
Yeah, of course. So again, going back to the point of accountability, right? You want to make sure that you hold your students accountable for the work that they're doing on their own time. So a good way to hold them accountable is as they're doing their on your own work on the asynchronous part of the flipping the classroom, have them bring their work into now the in the classroom, right? So if students were assigned to do a paper a homework assignment, then you would set time in the face-to-face class or the face-to-face point part of the flipped classroom, have them present or have them show their work either as a group or among students as a peer-to-peer assignment or in front of the classroom as a presentation so that you hold them accountable. Also, practice what you have learned. If you see that something is working for you, you're always fine-tuning the way that the flipped classroom approach is not just one way. You can always figure out how it works best for you, especially on your subject matter. If you're teaching a specific subject matter and the flipped classroom approach is not working for you, you can always fine-tune and make it work for your teaching style. Muddiest points and reflections are always great for the flipped classroom because now you have this extra time to talk individually with students and find out what was difficult, what did they find challenging. And so now that you have this extra time, talk to your students and ask them, what did you find difficult? Where do you need help? And again, like I said before, reflection. You want to have your students go back and reflect on what they learned and what did they just overcame. And those are always great, not only in the flipped classroom, but also in traditional classroom reflections and doing muddy points are always great. You can always group students together to share what they learn. And that's another way to do reflection is group students, put students into groups and have them discuss and help have them help each other out in a group setting so that you promote social learning.
Exactly. I just want to just tag on that the reflection component is really important because the student has successfully done the work, um, does not mean that they've added context to it. So if you ask students to reflect on what they've learned and how it relates in some way to, let's say, their professional development, or it helps them to move to the next phase of the course where you're going into more complex concepts. Reflection's a great way to do that. And when you ask students to share what they've learned with one another and then report out to the class, it's another way for people to mine the assignment for all the value that can be extracted from it. And that just takes patience on your part. And all this interaction with students, there is documentation that students learn far more from each other than they do from their professors. But the professor sets the stage, creates the context, and frames everything. But the actual act of sharing and exchanging, really critical for the students to talk to each other. Next slide, please. There we go. So working with students and students working together, meaning student to professor and student to student. These are all the things that sort of summarize what Jose and I have been talking about. Micro lectures. This is video asynchronous primarily. That's not to say you can't show a video in the class, but you have to ask yourself, the minute you dim the lights and start putting a movie on the screen, no matter how interesting you think you might be, or it might be, they're sitting together, but they're not participating with one another. Try to work students in groups of various sizes for problem solvings and discussions, exploration, and review. This can be done synchronously in class or in breakout rooms. And if you are unfortunately having a small group of students who are in breakout sessions, they can put in breakout sessions within that group that's working remotely. But the students all have laptops, and so there should be no problem with bringing a remote student into a synchronous breakout discussion. They'll just have one computer that represents the person who's joining remotely. It works. I've done it, and I could show you how, and so could Jose. So the other thing is live assignments that require response in class is an excellent way to explore what's been learned. And in those cases, you don't say who remembers this or how did that. That's when you get students into saying, I'm going to cold call, but I'm not going to cold call to embarrass you. So if you don't know something, it's okay to say, I'm not sure, and I'll move on to somebody else. But I'll also say to that student, you can't be not sure every time I call on you. That's a good indication to the student that you're not going to kill them because they couldn't answer one question, but that you're going to look at their performance overall. One of the things Jose and I have talked about a lot is gamification using live polls and interactive synchronous or asynchronous tools. And now we're not going to go into great detail in that because this is really more a strategic discussion today. But Jose and I are both available to work with you on how these strategies can actually work. So rather than drilling into what VoiceThread or Padlet or Poll Everywhere can do, the more important thing is to set up what the assignments are and how you might want to approach those. And then we can augment those efforts with tools and strategies. I will also add that for those of you who use Blackboard, Blackboard discussions can be very, very effectively used without getting into using new tools. It's just that, nobody wants to eat oatmeal 7 days a week. And if you just give them text-based discussions, it's going to be like oatmeal and not the good kind, the kind without salt or sugar or anything, just like cardboard with milk. Okay. And then, like Jose referenced earlier, giving assignments that require students to step away from their computer is critical. So speaking for myself, I'll ask students to literally go out and do sketches, take pictures, and also to handwrite things. And then there are many apps on phones or scanners that students have at home with their printers that they can scan their assignments and put them in. This is so much better than just having them do everything on the computer as the sole portal for all the work they do. Students also, and this is true of all people, learn more when they write cursive than when they even print or type. So I think that you'll find that you'll get rewards from that. And the great thing about assignments to take people away from their computers, if they're in different parts of the world, it gets even more interesting.